Okay, the song we're going to talk about is Let It All Bleed Out off Rob Zombie's Educated Horses. This was the first song that we recorded together, and I was actually really nervous because me and Rob were doing this benefit for the tsunami survivors, and I remember Rob saying, "Oh, why don't you come into the studio? We're going to be up at Scott Humphrey's, and we're going to start recording this song." And I was, really excited because this was the first time I get to record with Zombie. I go in there, and I was nervous because it was always Rob and Scott, and then here I come to do this guitar part. So I was pretty nervous about it, and so we started with this guitar riff that Scott had, and then me and Rob would contribute, and we were just building and building and building, and we came up with some really great stuff. And there's some cool guitar things in it. There's some behind the nut stuff in the break, in the B section of the song. And there's some pretty cool harmonics and some pick scraping stuff that sounds like effects, but they're actually just made with with your hands and your pick. No weird effects or anything like that. So it'll be a little different than your everyday lessons. You'll have some weird sounds to play with. On the tuning with this song, you start out with your E string is tuned down to a C, and then everything else is tuned a whole step down. So your A string is a G, your D string is a C, your G string is an F, your B string is an A, and your E string is a D. And it's tuned down to an open chord, which you see a lot of of rock bands play in this tuning, like Motley Crue, or there's tons and tons and hundreds of thousands of bands that use this tuning where it's a chord here, so you can just play with your first finger. The reason this tuning was being played is Dolly Parton, a great singer-songwriter, would have these huge fingernails back in like the early or the mid-'60s or something like that, which I saw. And she would tune her guitar a certain way because she couldn't place her fingers on the neck. She had these gigantic nails like Freddy Krueger or something. So she would just lay her fingers on the guitar this way. But let alone, it sounds really awesome when you do that with distortion and things like that. There's not really a lot of effects on this song. Just a little chorus, but it's a lot of it is done with your fingers and your pick and behind the nut. Let's start with the intro. It's pretty much a rhythm in the beginning. There's no fingers on the neck. You're basically just giving the rhythm. There's just open strings on the first two strings. Your E and your A, which is your C and your G, technically. So we're starting out. I'll play it up to speed and then I'll break it down. So what we're doing here is I'm muting a little bit so you don't hear the other strings ring out. And you're just hitting these two strings. So slow, it's and what I'm doing for the little answer there, it's D twice, C, D again, then E flat. And everything else is basically a rhythm, and you're taking your first finger and hitting your F note and your B flat. So it makes a chord when you're hitting this. So slow again. And then up the speed. Practicing this rhythm, it's not very, exciting to play with your fingers. Things aren't going crazy, but this is so important rhythmically to get your right hand just playing that rhythm. And in time, I always practice with a metronome, and that's the best thing to do, or to play along with the CD. And that's what I used to do all the time, and just because your time has to be perfect. For the future, being in the studio or playing live, you want to have your time signature perfect. It's so important because you have to have it sound clean, and if it's not perfectly on time, then you have to stop tape and redo it again. So you start out slow. And just sit and play that over and over again, and then after a while you'll get it up to speed. And that lick there again is D twice, C, D, and E flat. Now the very last part of this intro, this sounds like an effect, but it's not. It's a second. So we have D, and then we have E flat, which is a second. And when you play those together, they sound very broken and wrong, but it sounds very right for this kind of song. So you're taking your first finger and putting it on your D note, and you're taking your pinky and putting it on your E string. So you have, and it sounds like a weird effect, but I'll play it, and this is how it goes in the song. And that's the end right before the vocal comes in. And again, that's just D and E flat. It's very simple, and then the strumming is and slow. It's same riff we were talking about earlier. And you can always use that. It makes it sound a little odd, a little broken, a little scary. And it's just a second. And that's when the verse starts and the vocals come in. And it's pretty much the same thing as the intro. It is the same thing as the intro, but you're leaving your second out of the last part of the intro. It's basically playing playing the intro over and over again. And then now here's where it changes. It goes into the B section, and we're going to do a little behind the nut strumming. We had in the studio, we were holding on this chord. The part goes like this. Instead of that long hold, I started playing, because the beat was still going, so I started playing behind the nut with the open strings on the beat, so it would sound like this. It just sounds a little broken and strange. And actually, it's very easy. This is the chorus of the song, and it starts open, and then on your B flat, your A, your G, and open. So you have, and you do that twice. Then you take your pick, you reach behind the nut, and you just strum to the beat. And it doesn't matter what string you hit, because they're just going to ring out, and that's what gives that sound. And then we're going to move to the solo section of the song, which there's 2 lead parts, and this one comes pretty early in the song. I'm going to go through this very slow, and but the solo is played pretty fast, but I'll play it up to speed and then break it down real slow. I hope I can play it slow, but it goes. So it's a lot of like strange effects. There's some cool alternate picking, some harmonics, and some pick scrapes. So slow, it's. So we have C, D, E flat. Then we have D, E, and F. Then we're going to go back to the C, D, and E flat. Same shape with your fingers, 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to go up to F, G, and A flat. So, and you're picking up, down, up, down, up, down. And this is something, of course, that's going to take some practice, and just practice with that metronome. Practice slow and then speed up. That's the part slow, a little faster. And then just keep it going faster and faster until you get that, get it up to tempo. And what that is we're starting with a D harmonic. And you're just basically plucking it, alternate up and down, and you're just taking your third finger just lightly up the string, not even pressing down, but just lightly creating a harmonic. And with enough distortion, this will create the harmonic to go up and down the neck, such as. And you just lightly do that, so you're not pressing down on the string at all. It's just lightly grazing over it. And you know, of course, it takes practice, and you don't want it to be too light, because you'll hear the open string ring out. And it's got, you know, tons. Every guitar player has done this, but it sounds really cool up to speed. And then the second part of it, you just take the side of your pick, which I use a trusty Fender John 5 pick, and you take the side of your pick and just scrape it against the strings, and it adds an effect. And this is again where I'm saying I'm not using any pedals or anything. I'm just trying to create all these sounds with just my hands. And I'm just basically taking the smooth part of the pick and grazing it fast over the strings on tempo. So slow, it sounds like, which sounds terrible, but when you do it up to speed, it sounds very erratic and a great way to end the solo. So you're just taking the side of the pick and grazing over the strings, but when it's up to speed, it sounds really cool. And so that whole solo section, I'll play it up to speed and then I'll break it down again. So slow. And then with the harmonic. Sounds kind of odd, slow. Back up to speed. And then we're going to the, there's a break in the song, which is very simple. You're just going back to your A chord. So you have your first finger going over your E string, your A string, and your D string, creating your chord, because we're in that open tuning, so you can play that chord, that Dolly Parton thing that I was talking about earlier, just with one finger. So you have A, C, F, and G. So here's how it is up to speed. And of course, slow. So it's a pretty easy part of the song. The last part of the song, of course, it goes into a verse and another chorus and break. But there's one more, there's a breakdown of the song where it's basically pretty quiet. And in the, it's another, remember I was talking about that second before, with that D and that D sharp, where it sounds very odd and broken. I'm doing that again in the breakdown, and it's kind of a quiet part of the song. And it sounds kind of eerie and strange. So it's very simple. You're just hitting your open G. Your first finger is on your A flat, which creates that second. And you want to have your G string ring out. And you take your pinky and put it on your G note on your B string. So all together you have and you're starting with the G, the D, back to the G, 3 times, and then you're hitting your B string, and then you're skipping your G and hitting your D string for the end. So you're doing it 3 times, and then the B string and the D string to end it. And always have that G string ring out. That gives an illusion of just it just as a whole, and makes it sound kind of strange and eerie. And then after that, we go into back to the verse and back to the chorus, and that's pretty much all the parts of that song. All right, let's put it all together and play it all the way through.